So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cindy Wong, your host for today and also your creative director at 8 Letters Bookstore and Publishing. How do you stop an unstoppable villain whose power feeds on hatred? We have Rommel Carrera, an author of Justice Universe, with us today, and he's going to respond to these questions that we prepared for him. A little bit of intro about Rommel. Fun fact: we just had our first year anniversary. He
Yeah,
just mentioned.
late
Um,
late October last year, we started communicating. Just thinking about all these things. Yeah, so
Now
very,
got two
very,
books.
very, yeah, very, very grateful. Like one of the first concepts we talked about was the music, right? Putting music in the
Yeah,
books, and we'll talk about that later. Yeah,
yeah, that is a big thing of the
yeah,
Justice universe. I would
yeah,
say so. As I've mentioned as well. You are a former semi-professional musician, songwriter, and singer with a major label released in the 1990s. And since then, you have recorded primarily as a solo artist under the moniker The Brad Cave and has won a songwriting award from the CCP. So that's you in a nutshell. That's Romel Carrera for you guys. But today we'll focus as well on the new book, Hatred is the Villain. This is the sequel to
yep,
Heroes, Monsters, and Puppet Masters. Yeah,
yep.
launch early this year. Ayan, that, yeah, back to back. Okay, so tara na, let's dive into these questions kasi marami-rami to, and I'm sure our audience for today, you guys would be interested to know all of these things. If you're still thinking about purchasing the book, or, if you're on the edge, I think this is a video you should watch. So, Romel, welcome. Welcome to the book
Yeah,
talk.
happy to be here, Cindy. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, I'm sure you've done a lot of these in the past. Well, let's talk about the sequel developments. Sorry, I'm deep diving into it right now.
Hmm.
It's exciting to see the continuation of the Justice saga. What key developments and character arcs can readers expect in this sequel? We have Bratman. You introduce us to Bratman, Balikat,
Yes.
Marites, and the rest of the gang. Oh yeah,
Yep.
you have them all there with
Yep.
you. Yeah.
Yep.
So what should we look forward to? Ayan.
Well, yeah, thanks for that, Cindy. Well, just as an introduction, especially for those who have not yet read the book, these are superheroes with superpowers based on their what we call troublesome traits, right? So, how they got those powers is a spoiler, so I won't spoil it. But for example, Bratman is very naughty, but he's very smart. So his superpower is using his knowledge in science and mathematics to create chaos, right? And the other very interesting power here is Chismis. Her real name is Marites, and she turns rumors that she hears. So she's a chismosa. She turns rumors that she hears into sonic booms, right? And she can move things and destroy things using sonic booms. So that's their power. So the first book was really about them getting to terms with their powers, and again, without revealing any spoilers, and the enormous responsibility that it burdened them with. Okay? Somebody gave them powers and then told them to do something, right? To do something, they'll save the world, basically. But how that is, it's in the book. So it's a big responsibility, and it really burdened them. And the ending showed them that character is actually more important than power. The second book, and you can see here they're all together, right? So it's really closing ranks and trying to discover the power and using those powers in the responsibility that was bestowed upon them. Okay, the second book is about them growing individually, and you can see here the drawing. It's not by accident. They're far apart, right? Which is in contrast to the first book. The second book is about them growing individually and subsequently apart as well, which is normal, like in a life among friends, right? Bratman, for example, had some tragedies, capital S, in book one that he had to deal with. So he was broken. And in book two, he had to deal with those tragedies. And the usual way we deal with tragedies is with addiction, right? Whether it's addiction to food, addiction to um, to a hobby, or addiction to chemicals. It's an addict. Sometimes people use addiction to deal with trauma. Um, the Plus, for example, at the end of book one, he was traumatized by his power, right? So he had to deal with that as well. So he was very wary about using his powers. Marites had some relationship trauma and needed rebound. Balikat and Plastic were happier, but they're trying to get some sense into how to use their powers as well as they grow apart, right? But they always knew that there was unfinished business after book one. That's how book one ended. They were able to stop something, but something still continued. Again, I'm trying to not to get into spoilers. And the circumstances in the second book will necessitate them to really rediscover what their real connections are. So this goes beyond their adolescent teenage friendship, and it's really taking stock of their shared responsibility and making sure that they are ready for that shared responsibility.
Wow, that's what I like about the JUST-TIIS universe. You talk about friendship, discovering oneself, and also, of course, the superpowers that binds them together. Say the mission, which is saving the world or saving the Philippines, basically. So there's a lot of dynamics surrounding in the
Mm.
main characters of the story. Now, how about the villain dynamics? In the first book, you skillfully incorporated Filipino villain archetypes. I don't want to spoil it, pero
Mhm.
yeah, but these are the common villains that you can also see even if you watch the national TV. But will we encounter the same antagonist in this sequel? And well, the title is Hatred is the Villain. It's
Yeah,
very intriguing. Does it refer
yeah.
to a character named Hatred, or is it more of a thematic concept?
It's both. It's a thematic concept and it's named character. And you see that the villain here is part of the cover, right? Which is different from book one. Book one, it's all them. Book two, it's the villain. But for those who read the first story, you would know that there's a main overarching antagonist throughout the series, which will extend up to book three. No? But for book two, I really wanted a very physically and morally demanding villain to be the center of the story. So this part of the story is really the creation and development of this villain. So he's very physically demanding. He's very strong, and he's also morally demanding because he questions his activities, his morals. He questions himself: Am I committing crime, or am I doing a service to humanity by killing other villains, right, or by killing other criminals? And that's I think that's very timely also in the Philippines, right? Because there's do you support somebody who's killing drug addicts or drug lords, or is he a villain? He thinks of himself as a hero, but in other viewpoints, he's a villain, right? So it's both a thematic concept and an ironic but somehow apt name for the villain. Just one spoiler: the villain, this guy hates the color red. Okay, but yeah, he hates red. It's one of the statements in the opening chapter of the book. He said he hates red, but he took on the name as a tribute to someone he cared about. So that's the surface theme of book two. It's the thin line between hatred and love, right? And what happens to a person who can only feel hatred and has a tunnel vision of vengeance. Okay. And then the person also provides self justification for all his action because in his eyes, he is the hero in his own story.
Wow. And we can see a lot of superheroes that have sorry, we can see a lot of villains that have um, not just villains but like real people
Hmm.
who also think they're doing the right thing.
Yep.
Well, anyhow, we grew up watching Filipino superheroes in TV. We have Darna, Captain
Yep.
Barbell, all the way
Yep.
to Batman X. I don't know. That's yan lang yung naalala ko. But when it comes to the cultural identity of superheroes, we have a lot, not just the Justice universe. We have a lot of superhero novels, graphic novels coming out. How do you view the Justice superheroes in the context of typical Filipino superheroes? Like, of course, there's Darna. Should take lunukin niya yung bato. And
Yep.
what? Yeah. So these are, what are the unique cultural elements have you woven into this narrative that set it apart from, say, an American like Marvel superhero film?
Yeah, I think for Filipino superheroes, if you analyze the type of superheroes we have, and you mentioned Darna and Captain
Mm-hmm.
Barbell as the stereotypical superheroes, no, they come from a vulnerable state, right? And then they do something and they become all powerful, right? So for Darna, it's taking that pill or that stone and turning into to Darna, right? And for Captain Barbell, it's a kid racing the barbell and then he turns into Captain Barbell. Okay, it's very similar to Shazam in the US in DC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shazam is a kid, and then he shouts as Shazam, and he turns all powerful. So their only weakness is if they can't get into their superhero identity. So the type of stories that you build around that is, them having difficulty getting into their superhero identity, right? But in their superhero form, they're practically all powerful, right? The Justice superpowers are based on general character traits, and they have limits. Chismis, for example, can run out of rumors and lose her power, and that's one of the things that we explored here is her losing her powers by I'll put in a little spoiler by um, uh, dulling all her senses, right? Like shutting her eyes and her ears. She can't hear any rumors. She loses her power. The plus can only hold a power for 3 to 5 minutes, for example. And again, like I mentioned earlier, he gets traumatized because it affects his physiology, right? He actually had a bit of a health problem after book one. Okay, so there's an inherent weakness to them, which makes them vulnerable, and hopefully this makes for a more inventive and more interesting superhero because they have to struggle. They have to earn their powers every time. Okay, Chismis has to listen to a lot of rumors just to build up her superpower. So that's it. That's really the difference. In terms of cultural elements, it's the general unacceptance of people of them as superheroes. And one of the things that's very present in the books is the effect of social media acceptance. Right? I used a trope, um, uh, a social media influencer who's the most popular influencer on the island, and based on her feedback that she gets from the public, they're very unpopular. They're not as popular as the the politicians or the preachers on the island, and the people on the island would rather believe the politicians and the preachers. And this is there's a very uh, hopefully this won't sound too technical, hopefully, but there's something called the 𝘍𝘶𝑗𝑑 cultural elements, and you'll see that if you compare, it's Google it for those who are interested. 𝘍𝘶𝑗𝑑, 𝘍𝘍𝑆TED, cultural elements, and for this, Filipinos typically have um, very high power distance, which means that we are very submissive to people who we perceive as having a high stature in life, right? Compare that to Americans. They have a very low power distance, meaning that everybody's first name basis in the office. that's the source of the sir mom culture that we have, right? Go to an office, everybody's a sir, everybody's a mom, right? And it's the same thing that's here. People who are in positions of power are are taken as more credible, as more superhero like than the actual superheroes who are helping them. And in terms of the difference with Marvel and DC, um, I think these the powers that they have actually affect them personally. No? Uh, the best example is the Plus. He's really traumatized by his power, and that's why in the opening chapters here he was taking some baby steps really into trying to get the confidence back to use his power.
I am just googling Hofstede's cultural dimensions theory, but
Yes.
that is very true. In the Filipino culture, um, we see that a lot, and of course, the power of social media
Yeah.
and I think that's one of the uniqueness in the story. It's very well napapanahon, futuristic na rin, as I would like to call it, because that's what's happening right now and what could happen in the future. So as I've mentioned, there's a lot of uniqueness in the story, and also when it comes to superpowers, because I don't think there's any other superhero who would use that element of gossips para like you do. There's just you. But anyway, let's talk about naman the significance of book 2, because we know you're building the universe, right? How does this second installment fit into the broader Justice universe? How important is this second book? And with plans for more sequels on the horizon, what
Yeah.
foundational role does this play? Ano ba? Marami pa bang lalabas?
Well, for sure, there's going to be a book 3.
Mhm.
It's going to be titled Miss Universe, just because I like that title.
Mhm.
And it's this book really is about deflecting the Justice team from the main arc of the story, because the main antagonist wants them busy so that he can build something for the third edition, and he unleashed this villain to make sure that they are very busy trying to cope with this villain. Okay, so book 2 really sets up a couple of things. No, well, maybe a lot of things. So the invasion of the key antagonist from another universe. It's called Earth X Invasion Team. Exit. Earth X Invasion Team. So exit. There's a lot of
Wordplay.
funny, yeah. There's a lot of a bit funny and maybe a bit green. What do you call this? Kinds of those things here. And then there's, if you're familiar with the Tron movie from the 1980s, I think there was a remake last decade. It's a computer simulation. There are a lot of scenes here that are computer simulations. The computer simulation of the Justice team fighting as a virus to invade a computer system. It sets up the AI that's going to be in book 3. The AI in book 3 is going to be named Karen. Control all routers and enterprise networks. Karen will always ask for the manager, so she's very mean. She's all powerful. It also sets up
Sounds
that's
familiar.
Karen. It also sets up a monster origin story. A Byzilla. There's a very small origin story. There's gonna be either a protagonist or antagonist. Not gonna say yet because I'm not sure yet. Who's gonna be named Byzilla? He's a kaiju monster, and the reason why he's named Byzilla is he's in Cebu. Okay, so Byzilla.
Right.
Um, and there's book 3 is actually a direct continuation. So the last scene of this book is gonna be directly tied, maybe just by a couple of minutes, to the first scene in book 3. Okay, it's a very similar concept to um, uh, Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back. The last scene of Empire Strikes Back is actually the start of Return of the Jedi. So very similar to that. Other than that, so book three is going to be for sure. In between book one and book two, there's actually a solo spin-off for one of the characters. His name is he's the very upstanding deputy chief of police on the island. His name is Hiner Alona. It's a play on General Luna, right? So Hiner Alona, and he was a side character, but he became very interesting here. And I decided to make a solo for him. There's actually a character here that's a ninja, and he's the fiance of General Luna, General Henner Alona, and that's actually their backstory, how they became lovers. There's no superpowers in that spin-off. It's more James Bond, the Jason Bourne type of story. I actually finished the first two chapters before I started this, but the momentum for book two was just like a landslide. So I just had to finish this before going back there. So hopefully that's going to be finished by early next year as well. And then the last thing that I'm planning to do is some very light comic strips. I submitted the zine to to 8 Letters, and part of the zine is a couple of panels for I call it JUST-TIIS versus Frenemies, because this is lighthearted. It's the JUST-TIIS team as their cartoon equivalents, just hanging around with their monster friends and discussing things that have some small lessons, like eating properly, right? So there's a manananggal there. She wants to eat instant noodles, and then Balikat, I think, gives him an advice that if you just eat instant noodles, you won't get whole, so you better eat protein. So things like that. And then there's also something about recycling, and there's also something about getting together and as a band. So something like that. So so there's some potential also for a more children type of application for the characters, for the IP.
Sounds so exciting. A lot to look forward to next year. Wow, grabe. Ayan. Okay, one of the important elements in this universe is
Mm-hmm.
the Spotify playlist, or the soundtrack that goes with
Yeah.
it. Yeah, can you share your creative process? Did you curate the playlist, or did you write the songs before writing the stories, or vice versa? Or ano ba, alongside the story?
Yeah. So this is actually the story of how the book was written, right? So my hobby is really music. I'm not really I don't earn money from music. It's a hobby. I'm a chemical engineer. But so last year I wrote I released 5 albums actually, and then the third album I released was a concept album of superheroes, and it featured these guys. So there's a song called "Bahala na si Bratman," which is a play on the phrase "Bahala na si Batman," and that was Bratman, right? And there's there's a song about a chismosa, and there's a song about somebody who's plastic. There's a song about Balikat, a shoulder to cry on, and there's a song about somebody who likes to do dagdag bawa. So it's the whole theme. Um, and long story short, I tried asking people to write stories or scripts around them, but I ended up writing it them myself. Okay, so the first book was really I really wanted to have more orchestral type of background to the story, because I really wanted it to be immersive and to really tug on emotions. And the orchestral pieces in book one were written alongside the writing of the book. So the main theme of JUST-TIIS Pilipinas, let me try to play that. The main theme of JUST-TIIS Pilipinas is based on the song JUST-TIIS na lang. So I pulled a certain phrase, the what you call this, the chorus of the song, and then I turned it into the theme. So if you can hear that, so that's a theme. So So this particular melody, that's the melody of the song. Just is na lang. So I turned it into an orchestral piece. It's a typical method used by composers. Getting a piece of a theme and then turning it to something else. Um, so these themes were written while I was writing the book. So my setup was I have an L-shaped uh, table. So one side was writing, and then the other side was composing. So I have a complete setup of instruments, and I spent a lot of time writing three main themes, which is JUST-TIIS, which is heroism, right? It's very upbeat. It's 5/4, pop, 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 and it's very heroic. There's a theme called vengeance, anger, guilt, which shows up every time there's somebody who's showing anger and guilt. And then the thing that I'm most proud of is the beautiful death theme, which is this. I'll let you listen to it. Um, so it's one of the themes of book one is they always talk about a beautiful death, right? So this is it. So it's very
Pang
so
movie
no,
na.
so no, no words, but there's a lot of emotions. But it shows itself first during the first major death in the first book. Book two. Let's get out of all dull drums now. So book two has more contemporary genre songs. So there's things like lo-fi synth rock. So here's an example. It's about jealousy. People are jealous of each other.
So, grabe. Iba-iba yung ine-explore na
Yeah, there's
yeah,
a
na
there's a
tune.
computer map battle, and I composed a theme for that. It's this. So it's very electronic. And then for the villain, Hatred, I composed a David Bowie type song, which I thought really captured this character. It's really rock. No? So that's how we do it. And book three will have more of the same. For example, there's a J-pop theme for by Zilla. It's very much like an anime theme with children singing and that kind of thing. So we'll have more of that, and we'll have a little bit more EDM, electronic dance music in book three. Because I intend to put in some dancing. I'm trying to figure out how to do a little bit of animation, and maybe put in a QR code where they're doing some Bollywood dancing at the start.
Wow, Bollywood. Well,
Yeah, because it works. Like I am very much influenced by, I don't know if you know James Gunn, the director. He puts in dancing in some very serious situations. Like he has two movies and series that I like. One is Guardians of the Galaxy, and then the other one is Peacemaker, and they always have dance scenes in those. And they're not forced. It's part of the story, and I think I figured out a way to not force it. So I really want to do something like that in book three.
yeah, I still remember. I actually listened to the music before reading the book itself. I mean, at least for the first book. So you guys can do that. To our viewers there, if you have Spotify, I think anyway, it's free to sign up.
Yep.
You can listen to the playlist for free. So ngayon meron na tayong dalawang playlist, 'di ba? So yung from book one and then book two, if you want to have the eargasm, exploring different kinds of music. I'm not, well, hindi ako yung expert dyan, but I would think that if you want something na, other than the norm na pinapakinggan nyo, this is something to listen to, the playlist itself. So you can support Rommel by listening to the playlist or by getting the book. Or maganda rin siya, you can read along, read while listening to the music if you're that kind of reader. Tapos, yeah, ayun, grabe, ang ganda. Well, we're down to our last question, Rommel. Kanina, you mentioned that you're actually a chemical engineer. You've transitioned to, well, I'm not sure if you've transitioned, pero you have this high paying corporate career, and then this time around you're pursuing your passion for writing. How have you managed your time and energy? You've got a lot of creative juices. Parang ano ba, na-stuck ba siya doon for a long time? Or how are you balancing this journey, especially knowing that success is not guaranteed in this industry? Alam naman natin yan. And
Yeah.
what drives you to keep going?
Yeah, BIR is not high paying. BIR. Okay, so it's not high paying.
Oops.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, actually my real passion when I was growing up was science. Okay, so I was a science nerd, and then engineering. I thought it was gonna be everything and everything for me. But I also had a bit of I had a bit of a hobby for music. I learned a lot, and then also a bit of writing. I was a campus journalist in high school. I was a what do you call this? I was an editor for our school paper. But it was all music and writing was always secondary. It was all science. And then when I was in college, it was all engineering. And then when I graduated, of course, I turned that into work, and then that became management, leadership, and that kind of thing. But if that is life, then it's so boring. For me, at least, right? That's my personal opinion. If that is your life, that's so boring. You need a hobby. Get a hobby, right? You need a hobby. So for me, it was music, and it so happened that I was getting, modesty aside, I was getting really good at it, and I tried to just submitting, and I had a bit of success, but I had no illusions that it's gonna be the one that's gonna feed the family, right? So I continued with corporate, but I really stopped joining the rat race 14 years ago, which means that it's very clear that whatever the work that you're doing, it's number one, it's a way to earn money, and then number two, whatever work you're doing, it might not matter in 20 years or 50 years, right? Imagine the guys at Nokia 25 years ago. They were so hung up on producing the best phone, Nokia, right? So where are they today, right? Same thing with Blockbuster, right? They were so hung up with, and then there's Netflix today. I'm very sure something will happen to Netflix in the future, right? So if you're into corporate, just be mindful that it's not the end all or be all of yourself, right? And so for me, it was really developing the other facets of my interests. So it was music, and then eventually, just last year, it was really just last year that it was writing. Now, how do you integrate that? It's I don't really believe in finding time to write songs. If you like what you do, you're gonna spend 5 minutes on it, and the 5 minutes will turn into 30 minutes if you're in the mood. Okay, if you're not in the mood, the 5 minutes will just be 5 minutes. Okay, so if you like what you do, you always find time. It's really integrating it into your daily routine, right? So like a lot of artistic ideas can be saved via voice recording on your phone. I still use a Walkman to voice record, right? Short messages. Like I use Messenger. I have a fake account. I send my messages to my fake account. for ideas on lyrics, ideas on scenes, ideas on phrases. For example, hatred is the villain. I thought about that while I was driving. So at the nearest, the next stop, I just wrote on. I wrote a message to my fake account. Hatred is the villain. So that's how you do it. It's really integrating it into your life, not trying to carve, because you will never be able to carve out time. It is going to be really difficult. Well, at least for me, I find it really difficult to carve out time. So it's really integrating it into your life. Boring meeting, write a few words, right? They'll never know. They'll never know. Well, hopefully no one's watching, but they'll never know. Okay. So yeah, so it's really about, and this is a cliche, right? Enjoying the journey. So what how do you unbore your life? How do you unbore your corporate life, right? Write lyrics while listening to a boring presentation, right? Write phrases while or play bingo while listening to a boring presentation. Okay, so it's really, for me, it's really enjoying the journey, making life not boring. Because like you said, success is never guaranteed in anything. Okay, in anything, there's nothing. You should never expect anything. So the again, another cliche, the price itself is in the journey, is in the doing, right? So if you really like I like these books. I wrote them, I like them. Okay, and that's success for me. Okay, I like the songs, and that's success for me. If I hated the songs, then I would have failed.
Mhm.
If I hated this, I would have failed. So that's it.
That's success for you, Rommel, and I am getting a lot of wisdom from you. It's really not easy to have both, but yung integration, having the work life balance. Like, people keep on asking, what is success? What is, like, how do you balance work and life, family, stuff like that? So I hope our viewers were able to extract a thing or two from this conversation. And ito interview pa lang to, like 30 minutes interview. What more if you read the book or if you get to know Rommel and the Justice universe? And I feel like, it's really an honor, or it's really a pleasure for 8 Letters to do this for you, for your books na rin, as well. And we can't wait for what's in store in the next year. Yun. Thank you so much, Rommel, for
Thank
this. So
you.
guys, please
Yeah,
get Rommel's book.
yeah, and one last thing. It's
Yeah.
we're doing something else with whatever we're getting from the book and the music, right? So
Mm.
I won't say it here, but it's something that makes you happy, right? So if that something gives you happiness, then that's success. So,
Yun. Ayun. See? Ayan. It doesn't have to equate to financial gains or things like that. But yes, thank you, Rommel, for all of these wisdom. Thank you. Ayan. So, thank you din sa mga nanood sa atin ngayon. And don't forget to get a copy of Just-TIIS Pilipinas, Hatred is the Villain by Rommel Carrera. Get book 1 and 2 kung wala ka pang book 1.
yeah,
Nasa Shopee, Lazada na yan, website, or get directly from him if you want a signed copy.
yeah. Get 10 books. They work very well as doorstops, right? So
Doorstops.
yes.
Oh, matibay yan, matibay. Thank you. Thank you so
Yep.
much, Rommel. Thank you, everyone, and see you on our next book talk.
Thank
Bye,
you. Bye.
everyone.